Alright guys, in this video we're going to start looking at home ownership, talking about loans, down payments, and along with monthly payments and interest. And so over on the right we see this formula. This formula is just our formula to calculate our regular payment amount. So it tells us with any type of loan, whether it's a home loan, car loan, credit cards, or this formula can be used to calculate that monthly payment that we have to pay. Alright, so part A, it tells me we want to find the required down payment. Well, it says the price of a home is $224,000. The bank requires a 20% down payment and 3 points at the time of closing. The cost of the home is financed with a 30-year fixed mortgage rate of 7.5%. So then for part A, if we want to find the down payment, we just take the 20%, so 0.20, and we're going to multiply it by the cost of the house, $224,000. And that's going to give us $44,800. So that's how much has to be put down for the down payment. Part B says, all right, well then find the mortgage amount. Well, the mortgage amount would just be the price of the home, which is $224,000, minus the down payment. And that's going to give us a total of $179,200. So that's how much we have to get mortgage. So now part C says, find how much must be paid for the 3 points at closing. So 1 point, this represents 1% of the mortgage amount. So 3 points in this case would be 3%, or 0.03, of the mortgage amount, which is $179,200. And so when we multiply those together, we get $5,376. Alright, so now part D says we want to find the monthly payment. Alright, so in order to do that, we're just going to, again, go back to this formula, this regular payment amount, and we're just going to plug in for P, R, N, and T. Okay, and so if we do that, we have my PMT equals my P, my principal amount, which was the amount that I had to get mortgage, which was the $179,200, times my rate, which was 7.5%, so which is 0.075. N is the number of times it's paid per year, so in this case N is 12. Now that's divided by 1 minus the 1 plus your rate, 0.075, divided by 12. Raised to the NT, well again, N was 12, and our T was the number of years, which was 30. Alright, so what we want to do now is just calculate this up. So we have my PMT is equal to 1,120 on top, and for the bottom, when I simplify that, I get 0.89 386. Alright, and then now dividing these two numbers. I rounded a little bit on the bottom there. So depending on how you round, you may get a little different answer. But now if I divide these two numbers out, I get a monthly payment of $1,252.99. Alright, so that is part D, finding the monthly payment amount. Alright, now part E says we want to find the total amount of interest, the total interest cost. Alright, well if you think about it, each month we're paying $1,252.99, and we're going to do that for 12 months for over 30 years, and so 12 times 30 is 360 months. So we're going to make 360 payments of that $1,252.99. And so if we take the $1,252.99 and we multiply it by the number of payments we're going to make by 360, we get a total of $451,076.40. So that's how much total we're going to have to pay. All right. So now we got to figure out, okay, well, how much interest did we have to pay? Well, remember, we only had a mortgage for $179,200. We wound up paying $451,076.40. So then if we subtract these two, the difference would be the amount of interest we had to pay. And so when we subtract these two, I get $271,876.40. So if you notice, you had to pay a lot more interest than even the amount that you had to mortgage. Alright, so let's try one more problem. This says the price of a small cabin is $45,000. The bank requires a 5% down payment. The buyer is offered two mortgage options. One 20-year fixed at 8.5% or a 30-year fixed at 8.5%. Calculate the amount of interest paid for each option, and then we want to use that to determine how much does the buyer save in interest with a 20-year option. All right, well, first we got to figure out how much we even got to mortgage. So we have to find the amount of down payment that we're going to put down. So 0.05 times the 45,000, and that's going to give me $2,250. So that's how much down payment we're going to put. So now if we subtract that from the amount of the cabin, we can determine how much money we're going to have to mortgage. Alright, so that gives us a total of $42,750. So that's how much we're going to have to mortgage. Alright, so what we're going to do is first we're going to find our monthly payments. Okay, we're going to find our monthly payments for the 20-year option and the 30-year option. Okay, so first let's do the 20-year, okay, monthly payment. So the 20-year PMT, well, that is $42,750 times my rate, which is 0.085. Again, so it's monthly, so 12 over 1 minus 1 plus 0.085 over 12 raised to the negative 12 times 20 years, so my T is 20. Now if I calculate this up, I get a PMT amount of, alright, so doing all the calculations, we get our monthly payment to be $422.79. So that's for the 20-year option. Alright, so now let's do it for the 30-year. Alright, so again, we're going to plug in to the formula. So we have 42,750 times my rate, which is 0.085, over my n, which again is 12, 1 minus 1 plus 0.085 over 12 to the negative 12 times this time, my T is 30. Alright, so now if I do those calculations, I get a monthly payment amount for the 30-year option of $328.71. Alright, so there's my two monthly payment amounts. Alright, so what we found was that our monthly payment for the 20-year option is $422.79 a month, and for the 30-year option is $328.71. Now, if we go back to the question, it wants us to calculate the amount of interest paid for each option. Okay, and so if we pay for the 20-year, if we pay $422.79 per month, alright, so $422.79 per month, times 12 for the months for 20 years. Multiply all those together, we get a total of $101,469.60. Okay? Now remember, we only had to borrow $42,750. And so if we subtract these two amounts, that's going to leave me with my interest of $58,719.60. So on the 20-year option, you wind up paying $58,719.60 in interest. Okay, so now let's do the same thing for the 30-year. So for each month, we paid $328. right, $328.71 each month, so times 12, for 30 years now, so times 30. And that's going to give me a total of $118,335.60. All right, again, remember, we only borrowed $42,750. So again, if we subtract these two amounts, that's going to give me my total interest of $75,585.60. So that's your interest for each one. Now, go back to the question. The last question said, how much does the buyer save in interest with a 20-year option? So if we subtract these two amounts now, 75585.60 interest for the 30-year minus the interest for the 20-year, $58,719.60, we get a total amount of $16,866. That is the total amount of money we will save in interest by going with the 20-year option versus the 30-year option. So even though the monthly payment for the 30-year option looks a lot nicer than the 20-year option, in the long run, you're going to wind up saving a lot more money going with that 20-year option.